Hello beautiful internet family, Dan here from DansTube.TV, and today I've got an exclusive look at the newly released Mini SE from DJI. Now you might be wondering, Dan, what are you talking about? What is the Mini SE? I haven't even heard of this drone. Well, a lot of people haven't heard of this drone, and DJI were very sly in their release of this drone. It didn't even get any sort of promotion or advertisement. It literally just hit their store, it hit their website, and there you go, you can now buy the Mini SE. There's not too much information on it, and it really does look like a rebranded Mavic Mini. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the differences between this drone and the Mavic Mini and DJI Mini 2. I will have a full comparison coming up on the channel very soon, which will be a more comprehensive comparison between these three drones. And I'm also going to have my full review of the Mini SE, but this is my first impressions and also a little bit of a wind test to see how well the Mini SE performs in high winds. So first things first, I want to give a massive shout out to the D1 store. They hooked me up with the Mini SE nice and early, so I have a chance to test this out and show you guys what you can expect from this newly released drone. I do have a 10% off discount code for the D1 store. I'll have a link and all of the details in the description below, but you can save 10% off all of your drone, camera, and accessory purchases. The Mini SE isn't available in that deal just yet, and anything that's on a promotional deal will not stack with this discount code that I have. But if you use MMAFB on your purchases through the D1 store, you can actually save 10% off pretty much their entire range of drones, cameras, and accessories. When it comes down to the price differences between the Mini SE and the Mavic Mini, I think that's the biggest standout point here, and this is why I think DJI really should have promoted this drone more than they did. It's significantly cheaper than the Mavic Mini, but it has some features of the Mini 2, so it really is a great all-round package, especially for people starting out wanting to get their first drone. If we look at the standalone drone offer, the Mini SE is available for $459 from the D1 store, where the Mavic Mini is $599 from the D1 store. Now, this is where the big price difference comes in. If we look at the combo deals, so the Mini SE combo, 619 Australian dollars, but the Mavic Mini Fly More combo is $799 from the D1 store. That's a massive saving of $180 to get a drone that is better than the Mavic Mini. So that's really quite remarkable. The fact that they were able to re-release and rebrand the Mavic Mini, make it slightly cheaper, add a few little touches that make it slightly better than the Mavic Mini, and make it that much cheaper. That's phenomenal to me. That is such a great deal. And honestly, I will have the links in the description below to check out the Mini SE. If you're in the market for a brand new drone, you're a beginner and you want to check something out, the Mini SE has got to be the best budget drone right now on the market. It's cheaper than the previous king of the budget drone world, the Mavic Mini. It's $180 cheaper if you buy that Fly More combo. What a crazy deal. When we look at some of the differences between the Mini SE and the Mavic Mini, there are very subtle differences, but clear improvements over the Mavic Mini original release. So the first thing is that it obviously has different branding. It says Mini SE instead of Mavic Mini. The build quality is pretty much identical. It feels the same. There's no crazy difference when you look at the aesthetics. But the one clear difference is it now has the orange propeller tips, which is what we saw on the Mini 2. It also has stronger aircraft arms and a USB-C charging port. And then on top of that, it's using the batteries and the charging hub from the Mini 2. So it actually allows us to get improved wind resistance. And in this video here, you'll see the Mini SE performs phenomenally well in high winds. It was a relatively windy day near the end of my test, and it did phenomenally well. It held its position, it moved a tiny bit, but kept coming back to that same position. It definitely is better than the original Mavic Mini when it comes to its capabilities in high winds. Another difference between these two drones that is actually remarkable to me, I don't know whether this is just a placebo effect, whether I'm looking into this, or whether I've got this completely wrong, but the latency between the Mini SE and the Mavic Mini seems to be slightly different. Now with the Mavic Mini, I would notice that when I would yaw or move the drone, there would be a slight delay. There would be some latency, and my movement input from the actual controller wasn't instantaneous with the drone. Now with the Mini SE, it actually seems to be improved. Now I've looked through every single piece of information I could online, and there's no clear difference between the two. They're clearly both using enhanced Wi-Fi, but I just wonder whether there's been a tweak done here, or whether there's been some sort of algorithm change or software update that makes the Mini SE a little bit more reliable with that controller input. It really did make a big difference, because that was one of my biggest gripes with the Mavic Mini. It's using enhanced Wi-Fi, which is all well and good, but that latency is really frustrating. So for whatever reason, it feels like the Mini SE actually has more reliable connection, more reliable enhanced Wi-Fi and less latency compared to the Mavic Mini. Now moving on to the Mini SE compared to the DJI Mini 2, they look very similar again, besides the branding and besides the fact that the Mini 2 obviously has that 4K sensor, but the camera systems look pretty much identical in terms of size and form factor. It's pretty much just the fact that the Mini 2 just says 4K on it and is capable of shooting 4K. But besides that, they're very similar. The only other thing is that the rear aircraft status indicator is not clickable. So with the Mini 2, where you can actually click that status indicator, the Mini SE is not a clickable button for the status indicator. Moving back to how the Mini SE compares to the Mavic Mini, and this is probably the crucial difference between the two and the reason why you would want the Mini SE over the Mavic Mini. And it comes down to the wind resistance rating. So you look at the two drones on paper, they're very similar, but the key difference is that the Mavic Mini has a wind resistance rating of 8 meters per second, which is known as a scale 4 or a level 4. And then the Mini SE actually has a wind resistance rating of 8.5 to 10.5 meters per second, which is a scale 5 or a level 5 wind resistance. And this is the same as the Mini 2. So the wind resistance is significantly improved here. That actually makes a big difference, especially when you've got such a small drone and some hectic wind conditions that can actually really put off your flight. So having that improved wind resistance makes a big difference here. And you can see from my video that the Mini SE does a great job of handling different wind conditions. I was impressed that it did such a great job. The Mini 2 was great in high winds, and I found the Mini SE was pretty much identical to how the Mini 2 performed in those winds. So that was great to see. I love that improvement, and that is a key reason why you would want it over the Mavic Mini. Why wouldn't you want a cheaper drone that can handle the wind even better? So essentially, when you look at the Mini SE, it's basically a Mavic Mini in the body of a DJI Mini 2. So for a cheaper drone that has better wind resistance capabilities, it is a no-brainer, really. Like, why would you get a Mavic Mini when you can get a cheaper drone that is better? You know, it's clearly the better option here. And it's exciting to see that DJI are able to do that with the mass production of the Mavic Mini and the Mini 2 that have the same body, the same form factor. It really does show that they were able to pull those prices down due to the mass production of those two drones. And that means that the consumer then wins and we all win. So that's great in my eyes. There are definitely some subtle differences between the three drones, the Mini SE, the Mini 2, and the Mavic Mini, and I'll show you those differences in my comprehensive comparison between the three drones, but my first impressions are positive. The Mini SE is a really affordable budget drone, and it's almost trumped the king of budget drones. The Mavic Mini was previously my favorite budget drone, and now the Mini SE comes in cheaper with better wind resistance capabilities. Why not? Why not get that drone? It makes no sense why you would get the Mavic Mini compared to the Mini SE. So great job here. DJI have done a fantastic job of making the best budget drone even better. Overall, my first impressions are extremely positive. The Mavic Mini is one of my favorite budget drones of all time. It's honestly the king of budget drones, but to release something that is cheaper and slightly better, the Mini SE is definitely now the king of budget drones. It did a great job in all different wind conditions. I was extremely impressed with my first test with the Mini SE, and also those differences with the latency. I don't know whether that's a real thing, but I will test that again when I do my comparison. It just feels like the Mini SE has improved enhanced Wi-Fi. It actually seems to respond a lot more attuned to your controller inputs, and it seems to have a more responsive actual result when you're moving the drone and flying it and yawing it, which is a big thing because that was one of my biggest gripes with the Mavic Mini. Anyway, I'd love your thoughts in the comments below. I love the Mini SE. I'm really excited to do some more content on the channel. Make sure to subscribe for that comparison as well as the full review of the Mini SE. But overall, this is a really exciting drone, and I'm impressed with my first test with the Mini SE. Great job, DJI. I think you should have promoted it a little bit more, as this is a steal. This is such a good deal for people wanting to get into the drone space. But anyway, that's up to them if they don't want to do that. I will be creating a lot of content to show you guys what you can get here, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to have a great day, and peace out.